Ladies and gentlemen, hello, my name is Sam, welcome to another video, hope you're all doing great. Welcome to my first ever tutorial. I'm really excited to see how this is going to go, so please feel free to leave any kind of feedback down in the comment section below. Today I will be covering an aircraft that not that many people fly, which is a bit of a shame because it is definitely nice. I do, however, also understand why people maybe find it really sort of not that great to fly from the very first sort of impression, but like everything else in life, once you give it a few tries and learn to adjust it a bit, you suddenly really get a very different experience. You're looking at the VirtualCol Airbus A220 in the beautiful Latvian livery here from vBaltic, and today we're going to take this aircraft here from Riga, where it's based, the primary vBaltic base. We're going to take it to my personal home base, which is Copenhagen in Denmark. This tutorial will cover how I fly this beautiful Airbus A220, and it's especially going to be how I use this with the freeware plugin, which I really suggest you use for this aircraft to actually make it flyable, called vasFMC, which is a freeware plugin that essentially gives you a sort of a simulation of a MCDU, an autopilot, an ND, and PFD, etc. The thing with this aircraft, the deal is that even though the model is really nice actually and does have some of the nice details, including the way bigger windows the A220 has compared to other aircrafts, the cockpit is lacking a bit of systems. There is something here at first glance you'll be like, alright, this is alright, but you'll quickly find out, for instance, that the FMS is next to useless and this is simply just the standard GPS in P3D. It is not that sort of advanced, unfortunately. It is actually so little sort of, that's not even a word, is so not advanced that I don't even think you actually can do a proper flight with autopilot and this basic FMS. And this is why I am suggesting that you use this freeware plugin called vasFMC. So, I just want to first of all give a massive shout out to Callum, who has been helping me so much understand this aircraft, and he is basically the guru behind all the suggestions and everything you're going to see today. So yeah. A few things I need to mention as well. I am using a config for this aircraft that is available for all virtual vBaltic pilots. I really highly suggest, if you want to try out this aircraft, that you join virtual vBaltic and do some nice flights with them in the beautiful A220. And of course also download their config and also their tracker, because they actually have inbuilt safety demos, etc., which is pretty cool. Other than that, this is just the out-of-the-box VirtualCol A220, and then of course with vasFMC. Now, the deal with vasFMC is that it's actually pretty much handling just like the A320. We will be using a A320 layout in vasFMC, so I know it's not, unfortunately, the A220, but it is not too far away, and yeah. That does, however, also mean that this is not going to be so much a tutorial about how to fly the A320. It is still going to be based on the A220, but if you are not familiar with the A320 systems, I would suggest you maybe go watch another YouTube video first on how to fly that, but it's not that advanced, do not worry. I also want to say that even though I understand it can be really boring to watch a long video through directly without skipping, I do recommend you don't skip too much, as there are going to be some small things I'm going to do that will do quite a big difference in the experience of this aircraft. So I will, however, leave some timestamps down in the description for when you maybe should go to a different section or such. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. Before we do anything else, I just want to mention right now you see my engines are off. They are in the cold and dark. It's not really cold and dark, but the engines are off. When you load in this aircraft, unfortunately, you cannot load it into cold and dark from the beginning. But basically what you do in the cockpit is you'll take the two engine switches, turn them off. You'll go up here, and you can take these two off as well. It's not necessary to do this, but it's just if you want to start in a bit more realistic state, then take these off here. Not this one, sorry, but these three here, the entire is off, and the hydraulic 3A, 3 Bravo, and 2 Bravo off. And now we are in what is the closest we're going to get to a cold and dark state today, unfortunately. Before anything else, first thing we have to do is take a look at the OFP, which I've made from SimBrief. By the way, if you want a good A220 profile, you should also go into Virtual vBaltic. They have made a SimBrief profile there. And we have to put the fuel and payload into this aircraft. And unfortunately, you cannot really do this from the FMS. You have to do it via the old school P3D way, which is vehicles and fuel and payload. Already here, I have a few small catches, but let's just get straight into it now. So once you are up here and select vehicle and fuel and payload, you will notice that this is in pounds. Now, if you're like me, a European guy who really wants to use meters and, or maybe not meters, but at least kilograms, and tons, then there is a quite easy way to fix that. If you go out and cancel and go into the general options, to the top right, you will see you can here in the unit of measure select metric instead of US. Now, you can do this while putting in the payload. I will, however, say, please switch it back to the US system, because otherwise the vasFMC autopilot will think that you are flying in meters and not feet, and that is not what we're doing unless you're flying in China. So set to metric now. We'll go into fuel and payload here, and you will, if you don't have the VirtualCol config, you will see that this is not the same. What they've done is they've actually simulated all the different rows of the aircraft in a way, so you can actually very, very precisely distribute the amount of payload you want to each seat of the aircraft, which is pretty cool. So if you don't have this layout, do not worry. Overall, the most important thing is just that the fuel out here and the payload is matching. So we have an OFP. Let's start with the fuel today. We're taking 6 tons and 55 kilos. Now you can see we actually almost have full tanks. So if I go and delete this here, set to 0, and we set these to 100, we then actually almost have what we need, just with the exception of like 50 kilos. So let's go and add 50 kilos. I mean, to be honest, I'm not even going to bother with that. But here we go. That's the way to get that. And then the payload, what I would look at is the payload tab out here. We want to go down to the OFP here. This is just a standard SimBrief layout. We're on the payload of 10.8. We currently have 10.0. So we need 800 kilos on board. So I suggest we just take some of them and round them up a bit. So we'll take 2 there. We'll take 2 there. 2 there. And 2 there. 10.8. There we go. Matching the payload. So we can go and press OK. And then, as mentioned, back into options, general, and US system once again. So that's actually the primary part of that. Now we have to fuel the payload in, nice and easy. Let's take a look at vasFMC before we do anything else. vasFMC is not that difficult to install. Please also make sure you have the newest nav data for it, which you just get via Navigraph, nice and easy. Once you open vasFMC, you'll have this little sort of window here, if I can find it once again, where you can select from all the different systems you're going to use. And the ones we're going to use today is the PFD, the ND, the CDU, and the FCU. Now, unless you are like me, you might have a second monitor, and then you can put them on these separate windows to that one. However, I only have one monitor, so you have to do with this. I do apologize, but at the same time, I don't. It's just how it is. You can always minimize them or open it and shut them down as you feel. It's really, really up to you. But here we have, you might already now see, this looks very familiar to the A320, and that is kind of the purpose with this. The A320 and A220 is not that far away. I will recommend that down here in the aircraft data profile, you should actually take the A319, because it is just a bit more close to the A220 regarding the fuel and everything. So I would suggest you do that. And then, yeah, here we are. So what will you do for now? Well, if we just start up with the FMS, there's an old route in there. We'll disregard that. You should have a very blank page like this. And the first thing we're going to do is put in the route that you're going to fly. So this is going to be very, very Airbus-like. So we're flying from Riga to Copenhagen, which is Echo Kilo Charlie Hotel. We're going to align the RS. There we go. We're going to put in the flight number, which is today. And usually I just put in the call sign, which is Baltic 1 Papa 9er. Custom decks, usually 3-0. It doesn't really matter in this aircraft. AirBaltic doesn't use a custom decks, they just use a fixed cruise speed, which I'll come into later. Our cruising altitude today, according to the OFP, will be fly level 380. There we go. Boom. I'll actually start with doing that. The next thing I'll do is actually put the route in. We'll do the init Bravo page a bit later on. I'll explain why. So out of Riga today, I can tell you we'll be departing runway 36. We have the entire route here. It is possible if you use SimBrief to download into a vasFMC like layout, so you just have a company route. But I'm just in case you guys don't have that, going to put it in manually here so you can see what we're doing. So departure page, unless it's about to crash or something. There we go. We're going to depart runway 36 today, and it's going to be the valid for Golf departure. Ignore this factually there. Valid for Golf out of runway 36. After valid, we then use the airway, so we're going to put in Mike 869. We'll take that to Luket, Lima Uniform Kilo Echo Delta. Well, yeah, actually, by the way, what you can do now is, if you have to sim the AirBaltic tracker, just start the flight now. No reason not to. We're flying offline today at flight 380. The route doesn't really matter, but yeah, 380, start the flight. And you should hear some ambience in the background because of the sound pack from VirtualCol, which is pretty cool. After Lukehead, we then have another airway, which is going to be the Mike 405 to Adaxa, Alpha Delta Alpha X-Ray Alpha. From Adaxa, and yet another airway. If you don't have an airway, if you have a direct at some point, you just put in the next waypoint right here instead of the airway. Nice and easy. From Adaxa, we're going to have the Mike 864 airway, which will take to Collier, Kilo Oscar Lima Juliet Alpha. From Collier, we have yet another airway, the Mike 611 airway to Elvix, which is in Swedish airspace. Last but not least, from Elvix, we then have a Lima 975 airway to Tidwo. Now, some people change whether they put in the star already on the ground of the departure airport or in cruise. I will say I do recommend here that you actually put the star in if you know it already now, because it'll be easier for vasFMC to calculate a somewhat accurate vertical profile. Vertical profile. Please notice actually it's authentic vBaltic recording. It's really cool. So I know now it's going to be the Tidwo 1 Foxtrot arrival, runway 22 left. Tidwo 1 Foxtrot is a vector arrival. So what I think I'll do is I'll actually put in my own little waypoint that I know will give us onto the ILS. So Tidwo 1 Foxtrot, there we go. We don't need transition. But if you want to step through the flight plan to make sure you've made no mistakes, you can just do it like you would in the Airbus A320 or such. Set to plan mode, flight plan, and just go through here for the entire flight plan here. And you should see that is nice and easy in towards Copenhagen. However, as I mentioned, we are going to add a little waypoint because we are not going to fly the entire sit. So if I check the charts for Copenhagen, I know if I go into stars, there should be a direct arrival where you can see the waypoint at Dorvey. At Dorvey will then bring us straight onto the ILS runway 22 left. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the MCDU. After Tidwo, we're going to put in Adobe Alpha Delta Oscar Victor India. You don't need to do this. You can also use heading mode. It's really up to you. I just do this because I'm flying offline today. And now we should have a even more accurate approach in towards coming from Tidwo, Adobe, and then onto the ILS runway 22 left here in Copenhagen. Good. That is pretty much it from this flight planning part here. It's going to be the valid for Golf departure out of here. So in the Bravo page, right, if you press here, you will maybe see, like I do, have a small difference in the plan 03 weight and the one we have here. It is not a major one. We are speaking, what, 300 kilos, so I'm not really going to bother with that. The fuel page, however, if you press the fuel planning button here, please put in the correct amount of fuel. So for us, it's going to be 6 point. We're going to round it up to, actually, no, we're going to round it down to 6. There we go. No, we did put in, no, we did not put 50 kilos in. It's just 6 tons today. And that is actually the preparation done. That wasn't too difficult, was it? Of course, if you're not familiar with Airbus systems, you might be a bit out of the sort of, knowledge with this. But as long as you have a tiny idea how Airbus works in general, then it should not be a problem. If you guys just want to have an idea what's going to happen today for the takeoff, what we'll do is we'll depart out of our gate today, which I think is actually not even a pushback gate, but a normal taxi out gate here. And we'll depart runway 36, so we're going to do a left turn down here, and then we're going to try and depart from Charlie, because we can do that, I think, with our weight today, or Bravo, we'll see. Now, for takeoff calculation, please be careful watching now. Please look exactly what I'm doing. I'll, of course, link to this calculator in the description. I'm using this freeware online version, which actually does the job. A lot of people know it. And even though this is not for the A220, it does do the job. So, what you have to do now, because we need to have a bit more accurate weight profile, select A319, and you can only select the IE, that's okay. Then go to the weight and balance section, select the config 144, select the passenger and back demand down to no, and then press the orange init button. You'll now see a takeoff weight here of 40 tons by default. We want this to match our takeoff weight that we have here, 53.2. First things first, remove this fuel here, and then what you're going to do now is you're going to add the amount of fuel here that you need to add this. So if you just want to do it like the safe way, you can open calculator, and let's take the the actual takeoff weight we want, subtract the current one, And then you have it. So 12795, if I know how to copy. If I put it in it again here, we have the not right way because it's a comma. Okay, you have to do 12795. I'll try again. There we go. Now we have the exact takeoff weight. Don't mind the fuel here. It's not relevant. It's just all about getting the right takeoff weight. Because now we can go back to the takeoff page and it knows the exact weight. From here, we're going to put in our departure airport, Riga, Latvia. Get the METAR. VirtualCol usually uses flaps 2 for departure and flaps 4 for arrival. So we'll do the exact same because we care about realism. So, flaps 2 departure. And we can only do packs on. And the engines are... well, there's nothing to do with that. We don't need engine anti-ice today because of the nice warm temperature. The runway is dry. And we'll be departing runway 36 and we'll try and go... I'll just go from Bravo. Rather safe than sorry. Now, unfortunately, we cannot really use the flex temperature. Even though you can put the flex temperature in here, don't do it. It's not going to work. We are going to use a fixed takeoff rate, which you have not let any of us down of us flying this aircraft. So flaps 2 departure. Transition altitude out of Riga, I can read from the chart at 5,000 feet. And then we put in V1, 137. No, sorry, we read up here. So it's going to be 129. 129. 133. Right, another note here. If you are using the sounds from vasFMC, they have some sounds as well, some call-outs and everything. They are a bit more realistic than the basic VirtualCol ones. Please be aware that if you have 2 of the same speeds, it cannot handle that. So what I'll do is I'll take the V1 and take it down by 5. So we'll put it down to 1, 2, 4 today. There we go. Now we actually have done everything we need in this FMS. We are fully ready for departure. The last thing we're going to do is we'll go to here and now we have to do a small adjustment down here in the FMS. First of all, delete these speeds here, all of them. We're not going to use this FMS anymore. Set them all to 1 or something, just to completely delete them so you don't make any callouts. Decision height also just 0 or 1, I guess. And really, really, really important, the auto spoiler. Now, the auto spoiler should only be armed in one specific scenario, which is once you are fully established for landing, gear down, flaps 4, and you're approaching your final speed. Because if it's armed before that, every time the aircraft tries to reduce the speed, no matter if it's doing the climb or cruise or descent, it'll take the spoilers out and you cannot control them manually. So for now, leave them off, and we'll leave them off all the way until we are flaps 4, gear down on final in towards Copenhagen. Really important. That was actually all the sort of difficult part. Now we come into the cockpit of the aircraft. So let's see how we do this, yeah? So here we are in the cockpit, and we did switch a few buttons off to the off position. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start from the top left here. Yeah, a few buttons here are going to go on. Propede on. Hydraulics can wait until after engine start. Cabin power. You can remove the guard and turn it on. As they fail, that's a bit sad, but it should get on. All these should be on. Packs on. Bleed on. Auto press on. And that's actually all you need to put on for now. I think also these actually should go on. Yeah, these should also go on. Now, one thing you'll know, which is also a bit unrealistic, is that the PFD will not load unless you have the APU up and running. So we're going to turn that on shortly. Just make sure the parking brake is on. The parking brake is on when it's indicating that the arrow is pointing up at parking brake, like now. So right now it's on, and now it's off. But we'll turn it on. APU, run. And then I'll start the APU slow and steady. We actually set the APU generator on as well. And the APU bleed once it's started up. If you want to use GSX and boarding and deboarding, you can easily do that. To open the doors, you go to the info page here, and then you have the main exit on cargo doors here. And if you think this looks familiar, it's because it's the basic P4D sort of system, as mentioned. We can now hear the APU slow and steady start up. Now, while the APU is starting up, I want to talk a bit about how you're going to use the autopilot on this aircraft, because it's not too simple, unfortunately. The trick is that, I'm just going to go show you here. The catch with this thing is, unfortunately, that the managed mode are not ideal in this aircraft. So what I would suggest is you simply use manual speed. You don't have to control the manual, but you manually select the speed and also vertical speed. It is not as bad as it sounds though, do not worry. So first of all, we're going to put the flight directors on here because we're ready for departure. And I get a warning I don't need right now. And I'm going to set the initial climb. Since we're doing an ATC because we're flying offline, I'm going to go straight up to throttle 380 for today. right now I'm going to leave everything as it is. However, once we're airborne, I'll set the speed to 250 knots. And I'll set the vertical speed to roughly 2,000 feet per minute and see how that goes. Once we pass 10,000 feet, we're going to set the speed to 290 knots. Once Mach 0.75 matches 290 knots, we'll set it to Mach 7.5. And once we reach cruise, we're going to finally end up at Mach 7.8. Once we are starting our tough descent, we're going to set the speed to 290 knots. Once we reach 10,000 feet, we're going to speed down to 240 knots. And then once we're getting closer, we'll start manually reducing the speed down to something near our approach speed. Okay? I have a little table written on the screen right now which you can save in case you want to sort of memorize this. Good. Please be aware that this display, the autopilot is fully integrated with the VirtualCol, so you don't need to do anything here. But of course, if I put constraints on, you're not going to see constraints here. That is, however, constraints shown on the nav display, which is better than nothing. Good. In the cockpit, we have APU up and running, so I would say it's time to do some engine startup. APU bleed can come on. We'll put these to auto, and we don't need strobe lights on. They should have been off already. Beacon light can actually come on now, and we don't need any pushback, so let's just get ready for an engine startup. So I set these to auto, and if we were flying on VATSIM, I'll set this to Unicom 122.8 now. There we go. And if you get a squawk, be aware that you cannot change it with this one here. You actually have to use the mouse with here, which is really impractical, but it is what it is. Okay, that's pretty much all we need to know for now. So we have a few warnings. Some of them should luckily go off after a engine start. So, engine start in this aircraft. Quite simple. Park brake is on. Go down here. Select engine number 1. And then select continuous ignition. You will not do this in real life, but that's how it is here. Monitor the N2. Once the N2 reaches 20%, switch the ignition, left ignition on, and then wait for this light to go off. 18, 19, 20. The light's gone off. You can now go to the right engines. Same procedure. Ignition. Wait for it to reach 20% then too. Engine number 2 startup. And you have now started up the engines. Very, very basic, very nice and easy. Ignition back to off. Overhead wise, we can now go take the APU off, the APU bleed off, and the APU generator off as well. External power can also be disconnected as we don't need any of that. Please be aware, as long as you have the parking brake on, you will have this external power available sign. So yeah, even though you're taxiing or something. Right, we're going to set flaps 2 for departure.
Flaps 1.
There are a few bugs with the vasFMC, but it doesn't always call out all the correct flaps, unfortunately, but hey ho. Flight control trip. So, or page, not trim. So first of all, the trim is always going to be 1.3 up. For now, that's what we suggest doing, is just the most safe choice to do. And then we can do the flight control check, so we have full up, full down, full left, full right, and last but not least, rudder, full left, full right. Alright, I'll go this back to the status page, I think. Yaw damper, really important thing. The yaw damper should be off during takeoff and landing because it does make it a bit harder to control the aircraft, unfortunately. During cruise, you can easily leave it off, so leave it on, sorry. So for takeoff and landing, you should have 3 memos here. No devices on, steam sign on, and yaw damper off. The auto brake, I also just quickly want to mention, you can use it, however, it is not so smart. If you doing landing, for instance, set auto brake medium, if you use manual brakes, it will not disconnect the auto brake, so therefore you're going to manually have to take the mouse down and turn it on, which is a bit impractical, but yeah, technically it works. Text lights can come on now, and everything is good down here. We have flaps 2, we have the spoiler off right now, so I'm going to release the parking brake, already did that actually. And apply some thrust, and left, right out. A220 is an amazing aircraft because it does so many different kinds of flights. It does flights all the way down to like 20 minutes to Palawan, and then all the way up to like 6 hours to Abu Dhabi. It is incredible how far this aircraft flies from Baltic, but also how short it does. It does a really, really good job for them, I think. As a passenger, I can confirm it's a true pleasure to fly this aircraft from Baltic. Very, very spacious cabin, very, very like beautiful, very, very neutral cabin. But I actually do really appreciate that. It makes it a bit more sort of relaxed and just really futuristic in a way. Right, we have certified that we have 3 indications here for takeoff, so we can go back to the primary page. For takeoff, there is no flex temperature or anything, and there will be an auto thrust, but that's first going to be after takeoff. So for takeoff, what you want to do is you want this arrow, the right engine arrow, N1 to match. You want the arrow to point just below these numbers of the N1 indication there. That is sort of the general thrust that Callum has tested out, and it really works well. It is more than enough power, and yeah. If you're doing a really long flight, you can. I mean, it's not the end of the world. We just don't recommend you use maximum power because that's never really necessary. I will also say I am using a sound pack I've kind of made myself. The GPWS call out you hear are my own recordings from a YouTube video. Yeah, it can be a bit messy with because we both have vasFMC running and also VirtualCol, obviously. It can lead to some duplicate sound sometimes. It's nothing. We have nav light on, beacon light on, text lights on, and we are slow and steady approaching our runway. We're going to take intersection Bravo here to the right. I'm actually not entirely sure if you're allowed to use Bravo or it's Charlie. I think Bravo's alright. Yeah. We're going to do it now anyways. If you want to put some stuff in the basic GPS, you can do that. That's alright. Intersections, you name it. Airports. Sometimes you get the flight plan in here automatically. Sometimes you can do it manually by going into let's see, navigation and flight plan and just load in the flight plan. Just yeah, that should also do the job, to be honest. Right, we are approaching the runway. We're gonna just prepare the cabin quickly. Put some line lights on, text lights off, and strobe light on. And transponder we're gonna do manually from let's see here from yeah, we're not flying on VATSIM, but otherwise I'll go into vPilot and put it on now. Sights clear thanks to our absence of VATSIM today. So after takeoff, be aware we are going to quite quickly turn on the auto thrust, and we're going to set it to 250 knots, and we're going to set the vertical speed to roughly 2,000 feet per minute. It's important that no matter what you do, always right click on the speed to have manual speed, and that has to be the last thing before you. If you change the vertical speed too much sometimes, it can jump off and then completely forget that it has to maintain a speed, but we'll see how it goes after takeoff. Okay, let's take this aircraft all the way to my beautiful home base of Copenhagen. So, high bit of thrust here, monitor this one. Try aim for just under the numbers. Right about there. That should do the job. More than okay. We're rolling. I've got a very important thing here. If you want to set a QNH to local
18 knots.
Ignore the rotate call.
Go. Rotate.
Rotates. Follow the flight directors nicely at the beginning. You usually want to pitch up to 15 degrees
Positive
for the initial
weight.
climb.
Gear up.
Degrees, and already now, auto thrust on. If we can, maybe we need autopilot first actually. So, autopilot 2 in command because we've flown the first officer seat. And we'll select the vertical speed up to set, let's say 2,000 feet per minute for now, and we'll set the speed up to 250 already now. Let the aircraft increase. Flaps 1. flap speed you can monitor right here on the PFD, so you can see we are well above now, so let's go flaps up.
Flaps up.
We are increasing nice and quick to 250 knots. It'll slide off, we don't need that anymore. And everything else looks pretty good here so far. All systems are okay. There we go. You're in the air. Now all you have to do is monitor that the airspeed is maintaining roughly 250 knots, and you can try and play around the climb if you want a quicker climb. Try 2.5 maybe even, let's see. If you suddenly cannot keep speed 250 knots, it may be a bit too aggressive for climb rate, that could very well be. Otherwise you have now done your first takeoff, maybe, in the A220. So from here, as I said, we have to certain stamps where we are going to change the speed. So once we pass 10,000 feet, we're going to set the speed to 290 knots. And then once Mach 0.75 is equal to 290 knots, we're going to switch over to Mach, and then we're going to aim for Mach 75 for the rest of the climb until cruising altitude. We're going to set Mach 78. If you feel like it's familiar with something, maybe it's because you've got the dash 8 or the CNJ, which I do, and that's why it really is like just a routine for me anyway. So the aircraft is struggling a bit to maintain exactly 250 knots, but it's not too bad. Maybe set it down to like 2.3, I guess, and then right click. And we can keep track here of the flight plan, and we can go direct to valid now, because we didn't really follow this completely. That's okay. You know what, let's go direct to, let's see, Kolya. We'll give ourselves a good direct here to Kolya. Did I go past it? Yeah. Kolya. Insert. Oh, one thing really important. I made a mistake here. Notice, if I just do that, now suddenly we're going a beam a lot of places. It looks stupid. Select Kolya and select direct to the right here. Not just a beam, but direct to. There we go. Now if I don't Kolya. And since we have to take off now, if you want to, you can turn the yard up on. And I guess you know, electronics aren't a bit stupid at this point. Yeah, welcome up Regan, and I'd like to beautiful So we are now slowly and steadily approaching the 10,000 feet marker. So once that's happening, we'll go and set the speed up to 290 knots and set the land lights off and the seatbelts off as well. I don't know if all these should be on actually. Yeah, this should. I think it should be on here. These as well, actually. Yeah. I'm actually not entirely sure about those three. You'll see on the screen if you need to put them on or not. Well prepared, Sam. You know. Right, we are approaching 10,000 feet now, so let's already now go and increase the speed up to 290 knots for the crew for the climb. Now we can turn the left and right land line off, and there's no clouds that are going to be an issue for us. So. There you go, you're now done the first climb. So for the rest of the climb, please monitor that the speed is following as it should. If it's overspeeding, then try and left click and right click and then select 290 again. Otherwise just try and play around with the autopilot, but there shouldn't really go anything wrong here. And then you can just really much enjoy the cruise. And remember, once you reach Mach 75 and that is equal to 290 knots, then you click here on Speed Mach, and then you select it to Mach 75 for the cruise. Okay, so I'm just gonna speed up the video here and leave you for a bit, enjoy some good views, and then I'll talk to you once we are approaching the cruise so you can see what I'm meaning, yeah? So I'll see you very, very shortly. Alright, welcome guys, we are now in cruise at throttle 380, and as you can see actually on the PFD we are maintaining Mach 0.78, and if you look here we also see in the flight plan, or here, sorry, Mach 0.78. We have QNH set to standard, you have to do it from this menu as well and everything, and you can see the nav display, we're doing good. Now, one thing I want to talk about here while I can is the indication here of toe of descent. While this might look like a very nice service, please don't take it for granted. It is a bit tricky, and sometimes that actually gives you a pretty bad descent rate if you go from here. I have tried where I've descended here, but then I've had to really put speed brakes out and do an aggressive descent, which is not really what you want. So what I suggest you do instead is you find a bit more reasonable one, and therefore I suggest this website called something. I will link for it in the description, and essentially it's very nice, easy website. You put in these variables: initial altitude 38,000 feet, target altitude 3,000 feet, and the speed you're going to descend with, and then you play around the distance and find a profile that makes sense for you. I would say aim for like 1,800 feet per minute. That is something you can control. 2,000 can be a bit aggressive. 1,500 can be very slow. So 1,800 is a very, very good sort of aim or target to have. So once we are 130 miles away from, I have selected the center fix to left here, 3,000 feet. We have a restriction there. So once we are 130 miles away from that waypoint, we will start to descend down towards Copenhagen. You can always adjust a bit on the way if you feel like it's going too quick or too slow or something. But generally speaking, this is the best way to do it, I would say. I know there is a bit of the like sort of automation of this aircraft, but you know, it is what it is. And of course, remember that for the descent, you want to aim for 290 knots here, and then until we reach 10k, and then we'll start aiming for 240 knots. But for that was pretty much it. I'll talk to you once we're approaching the self-descent, and we can talk a bit about how the approach feature and everything works. So yeah, just enjoy the rest of the cruise here, and I'll see you guys soon. So, of course, typical me has forgotten to record audio for this section here. Luckily, it's not too long. So I'm just going to talk about what's going on here. So we are at cruise, and we are getting ready to descend towards Copenhagen. I had done a calculation already based on the vertical speed profile I showed you early on, and I found out I want to be roughly 80 miles away from next waypoint before we can start descent, if you want to try and maintain a profile. Now I've set 290 knots for the descent a few times here. That is a mistake. Usually you should aim for something like 260 or 70. You can do 290 if you have a very low cruise, but generally speaking 260 or 270 knots will do the job. Next thing is the approach mode here. As you can see in the Airbus, we just go from active sky, pick up the weather there, we have the QNH, we have the temperature, we have the winds, transition altitude as well. Interesting here, little note, I will always recommend setting the approach speed to be 140 knots, no matter the weight. You don't have to keep this strictly, but just be in that region. And usually you want to have the landing speed of being somewhere between 130 and 135 knots. And of course that is a flaps full landing, which flaps full is flaps 4 for us today. So not flaps full, but still for the approach selector there. So, with that calculation done, we could now go in here and get ready for the descent. A little note, of course, remember that the navigation
reaching top of descent
once we are on the approach phase, so do not be nervous about that. Well, there we go, 80 miles onto Elvix. So I go in here now in the FCU. If I can get my shit together. There we go, set on 3,000 feet and start descending 1,800 feet per minute. By right-clicking, of course, and then select the speed back to speed mode. And yeah, I put it up to 290 at first, but then quite quickly I realized that's not really logical. So we'll stick to 260 for now. 260 and then 270 if possible. It's just nice to have a high speed during descent. There's no reason to keep some low speed. So and the lower you go, the higher speed you can do during descent. So roughly at maybe 12,000 feet, I'll bring it back to maybe 250 knots. And then from there, get ready to get below 250 knots once we are below 10,000 feet. But yeah, at this point we just started in what Elvix, one of the Swedish waypoints. You can see the light level point and it came up to the way left of them. And yeah, I'll get back to luckily speaking in video, not voiceover, once we are a bit closer to Copenhagen. So enjoy these little montage here. So, we are still chilling here. We are just about to fly over Sweden. So, south of Sweden here. Actually, I think we're actually over Sweden. Yeah. Okay, we're literally just about to enter Sweden here. We're doing quite well descent. We have been descending with 1,600 feet because we have a bit lower airspeed instead of 290 knots. But it seems like we're doing great. I think we right now are more low than too high, but that's not a problem. We don't have any initial restriction we need to follow, so, and there's no ATC, so it's not an issue at all. But yeah, we're just about to approach Elvix, as shown here, and then we're going to have a right turn to Tidwood. From Tidwood, we are then going to go direct to Adobe to give ourselves a bit shorter approach towards Copenhagen today. So, as I mean, you can kind of guess it yourself. It's not because you're not able to, It's not because you're not able to change the VNAV profile if you want. Of course, if you want to change the VNAV profile, if you are suddenly too high to low, just do like this. I'm going to try and increase it a bit now here to show you guys. Just 2,000 feet per minute if you want to. A bit aggressive maybe, but I'll do the job. I have a feeling we're a bit high right now in the approach. We'll see how. I think we're doing good. I don't see Copenhagen yet. There usually is a good indication we have some while to go. I can always extend the downwind if we want to, but yeah, it's all about. I mean, it's all about practice. It will not take long before you suddenly have a good feeling for when to descend or not. Especially if you fly, in and out of Riga a lot, then suddenly Riga is going to become sort of a very familiar airfield. So that's the cool part. Back all the way from Riga to where we want to: Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Norway, Denmark, Austria, Germany, the UK, Abu Dhabi even. It's plenty of options for whatever suits your needs. So once we are getting a bit closer, maybe like 11,500 feet or so, I will start bringing the speed down to 240 knots to make sure we're not over speeding. Not really because it's the most problematic scenario here in Europe, but potentially some places can be a bit US. We also have some clouds that we of course have to be careful with in case of turbulence, so I guess the sea massage will also not come on within a not too long time from now. We're just going to check if we have any new weather. Active sky weather request here, let's see. Copenhagen. Nope, all looks good. QNH 1018, so we can go to the autopilot here. Set the QNH 1018 already now. There we go, and yeah, which is the following the approach from Tidwood direct to Adobe and then onto the ILS. We're doing just perfect. We're doing just perfect. Maintaining the speed as well. All good. All good. So we're now approaching Tidwood. We just left Elvix behind us, you can see. Now we're flying this little straight leg here to Tidwood, and then this right turn direct to Adobe, which is essentially on the ILS, so from where Adobe is not, but Adobe is not the final leg before we're going to turn left straight onto the ILS from the 2 left in Copenhagen, so it's not too bad. Approaching 12k, so let's start slowly bringing it down to like 260 maybe. You can't use the autopilot here for the speed. Everything else that doesn't really work. This one doesn't really work, but you can set the speed at least, but generally speaking, of course, only use one. So yeah, let's try and set for 250 now. See how it goes with the reduce process here. So that should be Copenhagen over there. You don't really see the airport yet, but that should be the island of Copenhagen. Well, not the island of Copenhagen, the island of Amager, which is part of Copenhagen. And it's also home to Kastrup Airport, of course. Just make sure I have sound on. I've done a few recordings now where I have the sound off, which is rather awkward when you realise that after a 10-minute recording. So, 11,000 feet almost. Let's start bringing speed back to. It's already through the speed down to 2.5. Let's just aim for 240 knots now. Rather safe than sorry. Increase the descent rate a bit, or so decrease the descent rate even a bit here. Maybe 1,800 feet per minute now should be fine, I would say. I don't think we're too high. So, 10,000 feet coming up here. Super sign on. No PED on as well. we are just on the verge of 250 knots. It's absolutely perfect, just what we want. And we're going to fly over what look like to be Malmö Studio airports on our approach today.
Passing 10,000 feet.
Airlines use that as an alternate airport in Copenhagen. It's a bit tricky because if it's because of weather you have to divert, then Malmö is a bad idea because they usually generally have very similar weather conditions. That's also why most airports use airports like Aalborg, for instance, as alternate, or even Berlin-Tegel, or maybe just Berlin now, not Tegel. Because the airport, the weather conditions are quite similar in Malmö because they're so close to each other. But at the same time, if it's just an issue with Copenhagen airport for some weird reason, then Malmö is attractive because it's quite close. It takes less than 1 hour in public transport there, or cabs, which I guess the airline will have to provide. So, 8,000 feet, and we already now have the ILS systems here. I don't know if we should trust this blindly. I might be in a situation where it actually remembers the frequency simply because I've flown into Copenhagen before. So let's see here, 8,000 feet. I can tell the frequency for ILS from route 2 to left is 109, there's 150 in Copenhagen, so it's not the right one. You know what I'll do now, just to showcase to you, if you just look right here on the navigation display, look at the nav frequency now that I go into the MCDU here, and go to performance, activate approach, and there we go, 109 is 150, and now you see the ILS is also looking for the right one. So, we have approach mode activated now. If this was happening in the Airbus and you had managed mode, then the speed will drop down to like 160 knots, but because we are doing manual speed already, it's not an issue at all. It just means we are prepared for the approach now. Simple as that. Alrighty. So, I think we can start to reduce the descent rate a bit again, maybe 1,600 feet per minute or such. We are doing pretty good at the approach, I would say. I think we actually can easily start reducing the descent rate even further, like 120, I guess. The final part can be a bit hard to tell, but usually, yeah. I know we're good. We have to be, if we flew to Vietnam, we had to be at 5,000 feet, which would be like right there essentially. So we are doing quite good in the profile here. No stress. And we will once again turn the yaw down above here. And now remember guys, the auto spoiler can come on arm, but once only. We have the gear down, flaps 4. Now the order for flaps I would say is flaps 1, flaps 2, gear down, flaps 3, flaps 4. You might wonder why there are 5 flaps positions. That is a very good question, but that is mostly for really short range, short field airports or something like that. Airports who doesn't use it, let's put it like that at least. You will also find in the normal VirtualCol that there are 6 flaps position. Why on earth they've done that, I have no idea. None of the A220s, as far as I'm aware, is capable of doing that. So. Right. I'll say we're a bit high now. I would do for visual approach right now, but I really want to showcase the ILS to you. We see the airport and everything, looks good. I see some tower there, I see some runway, I see some autogen being a bit weird because of P4D version 5. I like the simulator, it's not the most proper tool. So a little airport down there? I do think that's... Is that right? That might be not there. I think that's wrong. Yeah, that's definitely not there. You see it's very, very close. I mean, it's literally just, 3 minutes flying between. Right, so we are approaching Adobe now. Here, after Adobe, we're going to have a left turn onto the center of X2 to left, so we should start reducing the speed here once we're close. And now we have the ILS indicator live, so we can see we are definitely below the light here, so we can start reducing a bit further. This is going to be a very low descent here, but anyhow. This also means we can reduce the speed freely without worrying about being too high in speed. One thing that, I mean, probably a bit unrealistic, but I guess it's a nice enough feature is if you use full spoiler in this aircraft, you will slow down real fast. I'm just going to showcase you some idea what we're dealing with. Look at that. So, yeah, be careful with that. But, so if you're something in a very critical position where you're way too high, just full spoiler, then you'll drop like a bomb easily. Okay, 4,000 feet coming up here. I will slow and steady start reducing speed down to somewhere we can use the flaps. So let's go for 220 knots at this point. Also be quite realistic about ATC in case of traffic. And we can use this here to monitor. We can use the flaps once we are 220 knots. We can set flaps 1 and then reduce further for more flaps. There we go.
1,000 feet to go.
That is correct indeed. We'll call that. Very close to Copenhagen, so there's only the earth between a lot of pilots who work in Copenhagen, they actually live in Malmö because Sweden is just cheaper than Denmark, and you know it's not the worst commute ever going over. The British stuff is actually not too cheap, but if you have like a commuter pass, then it's not a problem. So a lot of Norwegian SAS pilots live in Malmö and then just commute to Copenhagen via the train. I think it's a nice train ride before work, but of course if you have a really early morning departure, it's not probably the most ideal situation to be in. But hey, your life, your choice. So I think once after we turn away from Adobe, we'll set flaps to 1 and then start reducing speed down to like 200 knots, I would say. So also going to keep a visual eye out to have an idea if we are doing alright with the profile and everything. I do see 2 to left there. A bit, it looks weird with the oxygen there because of version 5, but hey, that's just, we can't always win, can we? So just wait, we don't have a Dolby here in this flight plan here. We're just going to wait until we do a left turn, which is right now essentially. So we're going to go take flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
You will notice that the vasFMC voice, for some reason, thinks flaps 4 is flaps 3 or something, but just ignore what the voice says. Of course, trust the displays and what you see. That should be self-explanatory. Now we can see the glide slope profile is actually approaching us a bit more, so I think we should go and aim a bit more specifically for the glide here. Maybe say 500 feet per minute for the rest of the descent here. Bring speed down to 200 knots for now. Right click on 200 knots to make sure it's selected. There we go. And once we're getting very close, I will go ahead and put on the localizer button. I have myself experienced a few times that the localizer button can be a bit, not the button, but turning on to the localizer can be a bit weird sometimes. So just make sure that you are actually on the center line. The diamonds don't lie though, so if these are not in the center, then you are not established, obviously. But it sometimes doesn't really care about that. It's a bit weird experience, but we'll try and monitor here what will happen. We'll hope for the best. Let's see. So we're approaching 3,000 feet. We'll maintain altitude. We have Al Star, 200 knots, and we are slow and steady approaching. Center fix. It could potentially be because it's a quite sharp turn to do here from a door. It's not too bad though from a doorway, but still. We are just about to match the profile here. We can see the light slope diamond coming alive. The plane's preparing a left turn. Runway 2 to left is full inside in case we want to go visual, right there. We'll do a small right turn now to adjust onto the left turn. We should have them here in a few seconds. Left turn. Alt. Wait for the localizer to be captured. And then we are just going to wait for the glides. I'll start bringing speed down to 180 knots for now. I'm going to arm the approach mode, and it seems like it doesn't really want to catch in the first place. That can happen sometimes, I guess, if you're not coming in from the right angle, so let's just do a bit of descent radius.
1,000 feet to go.
That's alright, we should capture it though.
Localizer alive.
There we go, localizer and glide slope is now captured. It took a bit of a while there, but it's okay. Just come in from a good angle, I guess. We'll take flaps 2. Flap 2 has been set. And I will now go ahead and be manual. So I'll set this speed selected down to 140 knots, but I will however go and disconnect the auto thrust, which will give you the iconic A220 warning.
Auto throttle. Auto throttle.
Which is something I've implemented myself. 2,000 feet, and we have flaps too, and I guess therefore we can easily get out without an issue.
Gear down.
Increase a bit of thrust again here. Trying to maintain maybe roughly 160 for now. We're doing good on the diamonds. We are fully established on the center line and everything. Really, really good job. Really lucky one this time. Not lucky, but it did the job. And it should. We're going to go for fast 3.
Flaps 2.
And flaps 3.
Flaps 3.
As mentioned, ignore that the speed or the voice says something different. Right, we are now fully established. We have yaw damper, we have seatbelt signs, we have no devices on. Yaw damper is off, and now that we are established, we can go and take the autospoiler to arm. So once we are touching down, it will deploy the autospoilers as we want it to. Some lights on. Should prepare the cabin for the arrival here, and we'll go disconnect the autopilot. There we had some double sounds, but the one you heard from the cockpit is actually the ones that use in real life. Okay, and I'm just going to do my best to aim for the flight directors here, and of course monitor the diamonds and the speed most important. We are maintaining 140 knots, absolutely perfect. The key with this aircraft is doing not too many movements, and you will also find that when you're pitching up and down, that's where it's most sensitive. Turning left and right is actually not the easiest thing ever. It is very slow, but that's good for precision flying, whereas the up and down can be very sort of, yeah. It's something you have to get used to. It's not bad at all, and yeah, it's all about calibration, I guess. So, steady approaching. We have 2 white, 2 red, and I'm going to slowly bring the thrust a bit further down to aim for 130 knots for the touchdown. Coming in here from a bit bad angle. That's my bad. A bit of a crosswind, I believe, right now. Could explain it. 3 red, 1 white. We're going to try and adjust that slow and steady without going too high. 300 feet, approaching the minimum altitude. Minimum. Continue.
100.
100 feet.
50. 30. 20. 10.
Aim for the touchdown zone.
Spoilers.
There we go. Bang
Reverser,
on.
green.
Reversers. We wait for the signal on the engine indication there. I don't know where they are. You hear the reverse. There we go. Reverse is active.
18 knots.
Copenhagen. We cannot make Bravo 5 unfortunately. We're going to make Bravo 4 like most normal airlines. Well, there we go, a bit off the centre line, that's my bad. That's just bad piloting. Don't think that's a part of the airPorting SOP. But here we are, guys. Welcome to Copenhagen.
Flaps up.
You have now almost finished your first ever flight with airPorting, or the A220. And I don't know how it looks too complicated, and just remember, the more you do this, the more you get routine, and then the more you'll enjoy it and just really feel, hopefully feel a bit exclusive when you fly in VATSIM and see that you're pretty much the only one flying the A220. And yeah. Especially these beautiful liveries here. I think if you get this put together. So let's just go select for again Alpha 11 today. Why not? That's where I departed last time I flew here with airBaltic. But yeah, overall, to sum up, virtual airBaltic config really, really nice to have. vasFMC, a lifesaver for this aircraft, and does a really, really good job and making sure you get a pretty good realistic flight. And yeah, don't be scared to ask anything in the comment section. If you have the slightest question, I am not dangerous, and I don't mind stupid. I don't think stupid questions exist. I know some people say maybe they do, but I don't mind them here, as long as they're not too stupid. Don't ask whether I'm an Android or an iPhone. God, it's nothing to do with this. But yeah. Other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed this aircraft. I know it can be a bit of an obstacle at the beginning and maybe feel like a lot to learn, but you know it from other planes. Every plane has a little weird finesse you need to get used to, but once you're used to it, then it is very nice to fly. And I have to say, being able to fly an actual A220 to sim, that does feel cool and definitely worth all the effort, in my opinion at least. And I hope you guys will agree. And this plane is very cheap on the sim market right now. Of course it's cheap because the systems are borderline to, that's not a good word, what's it called? It's pretty close to being non-existent. But that is why we have the vasFMC plugin for free, of course. Hurry up to the gate here. We can go start debut if you want to. This aircraft performance-wise is actually not bad. It's right now I'm recording on Streamlabs, which usually gives me bad FPS, but that's also why you don't get the best FPS right now. But generally speaking, this aircraft has actually been super kind to me regarding FPS, which I really, really appreciate. One small thing I should probably remember to note as well. This fuel here is very misleading. I know it says kilograms, but it is in pounds. Please be aware of that, because that really put me off once, I remember. Where I thought I had the 3x amount of the fuel I should have, but then, yeah, it's in pounds. For a really annoying reason. Strobe light on here, the runway crossing. Left side is clear, right side is also clear. We are not on Matson right now, so not an issue, but hey ho, realism. Cross, strobe light back off. Just take where Mike is. Just stand out for one more. Yeah, cool. AP generator on. I should be able to hit AP start up in the background, maybe vaguely. Right, I can really recommend you guys to fly between Riga and Copenhagen, or Tallinn, as you also can do now with vBaltic. It's a really good practice route because it's not short, but it's also not too long at all. It's time enough for you to like get used to the systems, monitor them, try different things if you want to experiment a bit. And usually both airports have really good ATC on Matson if you want to challenge yourself a bit. Jump straight onto the network. So, Alpha 11 is our gate here to the left. Turn left on there. See if I can press all my nice viewers with a good line up here. What? I cannot. When I'm live streaming recording, I'm really bad at lining up. Every time I'm offline, I'm doing so well. I'm like, God damn it, I wish I live stream right now. And now we stopped a bit early there. A bit more forward, shit way too. Number 2 will be just fine. Perfect parking. Right. Parking brake on. Engine 1. Engine 2 off. Release the cabin. And beacon light can come on as the engines are now good. We can take the external power on. That means we can disconnect the APU. We can go ahead and now open the doors. Main exit and cargo doors. And therefore also go request deboarding from good old GSX. We'd taken 109. Yeah, sure, we'll take 109 passengers. No jet waking up right from this position. Great, that's probably my mistake. Don't worry about that. But you know how the doors open and everything. I have explained that. Folks, that was my tutorial of A220. I hope it was not too confusing. I'm fully aware it can be a bit tricky aircraft to get used to, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, it really is a nice plane to fly. If you have any questions about this aircraft, do not hesitate to write in the comment section. I will reply as soon as possible. And once again, a big thank you to Callum for helping me learn this aircraft, and I really suggest you guys join VirtualCol if you want to try this aircraft out. It's a great airline to fly this aircraft around Europe, all across the European network essentially, and in all kinds of beautiful liveries done by Inibills. It's a great airplane to fly. I'll see all of you guys in the next video, and enjoy this beautiful Airbus A220. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.